Hi, and welcome to another episode of Gully to Gully. After all the semi trolling we got after for India versus Australia, I think it's coming back to our comfort zone or our so called artificial comfort zone of bashing Pakistan cricket after their fantastic performance against South Africa in South Africa. We kind of covered this very briefly on our at the end of our previous episode, Moin. Especially the test series. I think it's a very short episode where we can just say it's the usual, except for maybe one innings in Pakistan. It was the usual themes of batting collapses, inability to polish off the tail, giving opposition newcomers or debutants their limelight, giving them 4 and 5 wickets. So pretty much the same.
My
But
question is,
maybe we can go
what's the innings that was different?
the third innings in the second test, the 400 and
No, no,
whatever.
no, no, no. You can open up 2013, open up 2006. There's always the second test match back against the wall. Someone will start producing something and start taking life
Like
seriously.
the Yasir
The,
Shah 100 in Australia.
yeah, Yasir 100 in Australia, or even remember the Asad Shafiq Yunus Khan innings in 2013 that everyone thought was going to be the passing of the mantle to the great Asad Shafiq. Then in 2006 it was Inzamam ul Haq. Like you have these where back against the wall, everyone the batters suddenly wake up and say, oh, you know what, we need to make sure that we guarantee our selection and make sure the paycheck keeps coming in, so let's actually take ourselves seriously for a second. The only difference this time was it was the same day. You had 194 all out, and that same day 194 for no wicket, right? The same day. So that just accentuates the problem that was otherwise being masked for all those years, which is application, right? They could have so easily done that, and they can't talk about the conditions being different because I can promise you in 5 hours the conditions aren't that different. It was just the fact that they knew it's now or never. And
Yeah.
yes, if Sam Ayub also played, I I don't think it would have changed the result, but yes, maybe we could have got a few more runs. But again, I will say there was a bit of a collapse in that third innings because Pakistan were at a position were 200 for naught, and suddenly everyone got starts, the usual
Yeah.
20, 30, and everybody's getting out, right? That is very Pakistan. After one long partnership, suddenly there's a line that gets, like line lag jati, as they say in Urdu. But the
Yeah.
difference was it wasn't zeros 1, 2, 3, it was more like 20, 30, 35, only because the pitch was quite flaccid.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess in sort of typical Pakistani fashion, they could have ripped off the band-aid in a millisecond, but it was just prolonging the pain. And, that extra bit of hope, maybe that the test match might go into day five,
Maybe
which
we
would
will
have been
see a
achieved.
Kolkata 2001 epic,
No, when you're sort of like almost, well, pretty much double following on trading by 400, that was probably never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, and then obviously, although as brief as it was, the very timid bowling performance at the end, where South Africa chased it off in 6, 7 overs. So
Well, nothing right. But let's talk about that second test
yeah,
first because I think it's more recent. I think Pakistan got their selection wrong, and I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, right? So I'll be very candid. When I looked at the team sheet, for me, yes, I felt that there were three bowlers very similar. I know you and I were shrieking for Mir Hamza to be selected and the travesty that he wasn't in the first game and he would have. But I think you have to look at conditions. Centurion, I think Mir Hamza would have been excellent, and you could have gone with three medium pacers, swinging, like swing bowlers. In Cape Town, you needed that extra pace, right? I know Naseem Shah was quite average, and I think the one thing I can just concede to Shan Masood is I know we have this thought that Naseem Shah is express, but he was only bowling at 135 clicks maximum. Maybe I think there was one or two few overs where he reached 140, but otherwise he in this test series, and he does tend to do this, he fluctuates a lot on his pace, and in this series Whether it was over bowling or fatigue or whatever, he was bowling 135. So it isn't that different. For me, the bigger omission was Numan Ali, right? I think Ahmed Jamal, yes, okay, he scores you a pretty 20 and 30, but you need to ask yourself, is that pretty 20 and 30 going to win you a match? Is that sufficient to justify the exclusion of a spinner on a pitch that seems quite flat and where cracks will open? And the answer is a resounding no, right? Ahmed Jamal, yes, he also bowls a bit, but unless it's swinging conditions, you have these exact same replica bowlers at the other end. You don't need his bowling. So, and Numan Ali, let's not forget, I call him Numan Charles Lara because I actually think he is a handy number 8, right? He can just stick around a little and all, and and he's a stylish left-hander. but the main reason is he's a good spinner, right? Either he holds up one end or he actually can pick up wickets. And South Africa do have a weakness against good quality spin. We keep forgetting that. Senna teams do have that. So that for me was the bigger omission. Naseem Shah, yes, in hindsight, you needed that extra pace, but I can sort of understand that he wasn't that threatening, barring one short spell at Centurion, and his pace wasn't that high. And Mir Hamza was clearly knocking on the door, and you couldn't drop anyone.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a decision that they probably thought even before the first test that they're going to play Mir Hamza in Cape Town. And probably their base case was either for Khurram Shahzad or Abbas, but then they were probably the two best bowlers in Centurion. So they couldn't drop them. So then they had to go with the weakest bowler, ignoring his skill set. Even though Naseem is not that fast, he's not, I mean, we think that he is, but he's what 140, 143, 144
max. As a maximum, Zahid. He hasn't bowled like that. Like in Test cricket, I think he deliberately bowls a bit less.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's still better than Abbas's 115 or 120, but but I mean, even then, right? I mean, Pakistan had them at 70 for 3 on day one at lunch, which
thanks
after
to
being 50 for no loss, and then exactly Saman Agha, which again proves the point about the spinner. Maybe if Simon was able to bowl, would have been able to bowl, maybe we could have gotten them for 50, 100 runs less. But again, as you say, in the grand scheme of things, it may not have made that much of a difference. But yeah, I think it's yes, you could question the selection and all of that, but part of it is also just it comes down to a lot of quality and both with bat and with ball. I think that Bavuma and Rickelton partnership, of course, how can I forget giving a newcomer a double century or whatever?
Like
Zach Crawley,
getting him on the honors board. I mean, Zach Crawley part 2. I think I said, we should show everyone that WhatsApp that I sent you. I think when you were on 50, and I'm like, Zach Crawley 2.0 incoming. I'm telling you. And you said innings defeat incoming. I'm telling you now. Well, I mean, it was almost an innings defeat, really. But, Zahid, the one thing I'd say is, yes, it's quality, but I've seen this so often that I do just think that the mental side of things is very weak. And I say that because the speed at which our shoulders drop in the field when a partnership starts developing is unprecedented. I mean, and I've seen this at Pakistan for so long, right? So as the opposing team, that if we get to a 50-run partnership with other teams, we still have to be careful. With Pakistan, bus, suddenly they start flattening out very quickly. And that's why you notice that either we get a string of quick wickets or we will let a partnership blossom. And, this is blossom times infinity. But whatever it is, there is, and Pakistan can't seem to get that, galvanize themselves and search for something. They're almost waiting for something to happen. We used to often blame the captain for this. We used to blame Inzamam, right? Inzamam would just be waiting for something to happen and waiting for a batter to make a mistake. You said that about Misbah. You said that about Shan Masood. And yes, okay, maybe to some extent there is captaincy involved. But I also think that just the players just don't know how to create something out of nothing and think outside the box. And I know this is very cliched, but look at Australia, look at South Africa. When South Africa when we are 200 for no wicket, yes, okay, you could see a few worried faces, but there were always moments. Babar Azam would just hit a shot a bit in the air, or there'll be a field placing that's a bit different, or there'll be, some really good bowling or disciplined bowling. Something would happen, right? We're so ill disciplined that we always gave them 4 balls every over. We could not keep to, and South Africa just have a very good defensive backup, which is line and length, and they're so good at it. Defensive line and length, and just prompt the batter to do something different to score runs. And I have to say there were a few lucky umpires' decisions there that went our way. We could have been out for less, but anyways, just
Yeah.
to give you a thing, that's my sense.
No, I think that is true, but I do think there's also the wider question of captaincy. And although we've been very lenient on Chan Masood throughout, uh, partly because I guess there's no other obvious
And he
option.
speaks good English. Let's be honest.
And yeah, we kind of like to see, or he kind of, he's not just about English. I think he's also got a thinking brain. Again, I give the basic example of in press conferences or interviews, he actually answers the question that's asked, not some answer that he's learned and just repeating the same thing about boys played well and good line, good length, and whatever captain supported me and senior players, blah blah. So he does answer the questions properly, right? So he does think about things. But I think it's happened far too many times now that the same issues have happened, right? Whether it was Australia last year, Mitchell Marsh scoring whatever 80 or 100, but he got off to Pakistan, had them 15 for 4. Whether it was Bangladesh again, leading by 200, having them 5 down for 200, and getting that letting that big partnership, or having them 26 for 4. It's happened 99 for 8. That decision to bring Amir Jamal in at Centurion.
I mean, the only thing I can think about is that Amir Jamal and Khurram Shahzad look alike, and he probably gave the ball to the wrong person. I mean, I cannot fathom the reason when you have the Khurram Shahzad there. Or if you want it, just try spin. Try Salman Agha or Sam Ayub if you really wanted to do something different. And Khurram Shahzad maybe was too tired. I don't know. And against a lefty, having maybe Salman Agha or whoever, and against a tail ender, often it can work. They can get excited in the out. You're very right. Yes, the only one exception to this is the Australia one, because let's be honest, how many times did Abdullah Shafiq drop a catch?
Yeah, true. Yeah, fair enough. But even like some of the field placing, right? Like you saw Rabada going after both Naseem Shah and Amir Jamal. And look, obviously, we always try and say have an attacking field, but sometimes having a fielder on the boundary, whether it was, a deep point or deep cover or at long on, long off, ends up being an attacking position when the batter is going after you. And it makes sense when they were like 15, 17 runs to go. But, pulling that length of short of a length outside off, or, and Rabada just smacking you all over the place, it wasn't going to get you anywhere. So, and it just ends up being the point that you made earlier about hoping that the batter is going to play a false shot, and it's going to just he's going to get an edge or something, or he's going to get a leading edge, it's going to go up and you take a catch. So I just felt once Rabada started going after the bowling, that there wasn't anything that he could do.
Yeah, now just think. Let's think of a hypothetical situation. Now, you're talking about the heartbreak of Pakistan. I mean, I've seen this happen so many times that I'm now so like not even fused. Like my mind is not even in any way triggered by it. When we were 99 for 8, I was like, we'll either win this or it'll be business as usual for Pakistan, and we will just find a way to squander it, and they'll have this crazy last minute partnership, and we lose a close game, and everybody will say, well played, we're not upset, the boys played well. But at some point you have to say the boys need to finish, okay? The boys need to close out games. Now, I will say that I think if Rabada pushed the field back, sorry, if Shan Masood pushed the field back, I think Rabada wanted you to do that, because Rabada was hitting out, because then once you do that, then the singles become quite easy. And I just don't think there were enough demons in the pitch to avoid singles, right? You wanted Rabada to find a way to do something to score, and just hope that his execution does not succeed, because he is a tail ender. I just think it was more the bowling that was, or the quality, or the change, the bowling personnel was a bit off, right? So bring in Salman Aga, off spin against the left-hander, let him get excited and toss the ball up and see what happens. And do it when you have a few runs on the board, like 30 runs on. So it's a risk worth taking, not when there's six, right?
Yeah.
But whatever it is, it's more that sort of thing. Because just think of a hypothetical situation where he did push the field back, and all they did, Janssen and Rabada did was, if he's hitting the ball out of the park, he's seeing the ball well enough to just nudge it for a quick single, or not even quick, just nudge it to deep mid on or whatever, or long on, or long off. Like for me, like that, we would have really criticized him. I can imagine it. I remember Mohammad Yusuf did that when it was Peter Siddle and Mike Hussey, and he did it more with Mike Hussey than Peter Siddle because there was a bit of farming of strike happening. But everyone criticized him for being ultra defensive, and he should get so many runs to play with. So it could work either way, right? And that's the thing with cricket. Like, I don't fault the intention to keep the field up, because otherwise you're giving them easy runs and there is no scoreboard pressure at the time, right? Because it's not like they had few overs left. Like there was no time in the equation. There was no question of time. It was just literally getting 2 wickets, and your best way of getting 2 wickets was to hold up, dry up, easy singles. That's my view,
Yeah.
personally.
I mean,
I just
yeah. I mean, part of the issues obviously is in the specific moment. Yes, there were mistakes, but the broader issue was actually the 148 target, right? I mean,
very
after
right.
Pakistan had South Africa, I mean, yeah, the batting performances were pretty average in both innings for Pakistan, but also when Pakistan had South Africa for 99 for 8, yes, but also 210, 213 for 8 when South Africa were leading by 5 or 4. And then to give that lead to 80 or 90, whatever it was, that was the bigger issue.
Absolutely. You're so
And then, whereas even if Pakistan scored 230 or whatever they did in the last innings, still, if they had that lead 220, then South Africa would have been chasing 200, 210, and that would have been a very different
totally
story.
agree. Totally agree.
As it is, to defend 150 is tough anyway, unless it's a day 5 goal pitch. Anywhere else, it's pretty straightforward to chase from, and
Unless
Pakistan did make a fight
Pakistan's
of it.
backing, of course. But
Yeah, of course.
but look, okay, so let's whose responsibility is it to wipe out tails? And there are two answers to that: express pace or good quality spin. Okay, yes, you'll have the Glenn McGraths of this world, and if it's a good quality bowler, you'll fancy your chances. But if that's not working, it's Naseem Shah, right? And that's why, even though Naseem Shah had a really good spell just before to get South Africa to 210 for 8, but it's his job to finish it off. And my criticism of Naseem Shah is, and comes back to when you said, attacking fields, maybe he should have had a couple more fielders back at the boundary in the second innings, is because Naseem Shah bowls a lot of 4 balls, right? And when you're defending 150, you just can't do that. And obviously then the captain is in two minds whether to give you that extra protection, but in doing so gives away an easy single. I mean, you make it very difficult. And I just think Naseem Shah in both innings did not clean up the tail. And I also think Shan Masood had a big tactical mistake in both innings by not bowling spin often enough, especially against the tail. And look, Salman Agha and even Sam Ayub with his mystery spin, maybe that's better. I don't know, but they're both good quality options, right, against the tail. So I just feel like we struggle a bit, whether it's the complacency that comes in or whatever it is. This has been a problem for a long time post Wasim Wakar days, that we just can't clean up tails quick enough. We've talked a lot about bowling, which all our batters will be very happy with. But as you say, the real blame squarely lies with batters. Okay, and yes, it is partly to do with bowling in particular junctures of the game. But if you just look at it overall, look at a scorecard, you're like, yeah, the batting clearly failed. Right?
Yeah.
When you have worked so hard in the first 30 minutes, in the first day, why do you give it up? Like, why? Kamran Ghulam, I mean, saying what he said to the wicketkeeper and thinking that he can be brash and have his chest out. as O'Keefe said, right? This is not Multan, baby. You know what I mean? Like this is. So yes, he scored a pretty 50, but actually that's even worse because
Mm.
how did you get out like the way you did in both innings, and in fact in both Test matches, rash shots. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just showed lack of maturity, lack of skill as well, especially that first innings, when you've kind of, Pakistan had recovered him and, was it Rizwan? Yeah, Rizwan and him, they were batting pretty well. And then you play that shot. He just shows, Rabada's got under his skin, and you play that shot. It just shows that you're really immature. He got his token 50, fine, well done. But then he's failed since then. Even the dismissal in the second innings, which was a questionable catch, I must say.
Yeah,
But
very. But the shot was not on.
shot, yeah,
You just hit a
yeah,
four, and that shot. I mean, really hard hands, really silly. That was a very questionable catch because I looked
mm,
at. I was literally glued to the television screen like this. You know, like in
yeah,
cartoons like that. And
yeah,
and I can tell you, the third umpire was far too quick. I thought
yeah.
that was not out. Shan Masood was out. Kamran Kolam wasn't.
So Moeen has moved from Centurion to Cape Town, but the conversation still says.
You know, I think yeah.
Some logistical issues, but anyways, the conversation will continue. um,
It's just when it comes to batting, even we just touch on Mohammad Rizwan. Okay, Zahid, explain something to me. How many times does someone need to do something before they realize that there's something clearly wrong? Right? Two things. One, his hard hands. I mean, literally, has no one ever taught him to just dab the ball around? Because you'll notice there's so many catches that go into slips or caught behinds that it's just literally he's like a walking wicket. It's like he's just poking and prodding at everything. And when you scored 46, okay, and this is both, I think, in the first innings of the first test and the first innings of the second test, the way he got out was insane, especially in the second test. I mean, that shot that he tried to do, right? Do you remember when he last tried that shot? It was against Bumrah,
Umrah in the
India,
T20.
New
Yeah.
York, T20. And he threw the game wide open, right? He literally broke the game open there and he gave India an opening, right? It is like the percentage success of that shot is like less than 1%. I don't care how good you are at that shot, man. I mean, you're either against a high quality bowler in Bumrah or you're in a very difficult situation. Babar has just got out and you just hit that. You attempt it. I don't even know whether to call it a hoik or a heave or a tulla or a slog or whatever. It is all those things and much more because it's almost like someone told you to be positive and like and have intent, but somehow we just don't see the difference
Yeah.
between intent and what you saw because it was just appalling, right? And of course Babar Azam, what can we say? What can we say? The first that was that second innings, his eyes lit up. So look, let's be honest. I think he was not fluent in Centurion at all in that second innings, but I'll give him credit for sticking around, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not easy to do. He stuck around, he got a 50, and then, like a child who has just seen candy, he threw his hands at a ball that was wide, short and wide, not, and he knew that there was a fielder there for that particular shot, and he just threw the kitchen sink at it. He just didn't even think for a
Yeah.
second, which was just so poor, right? He could have easily controlled that shot, knowing there's a fielder there, whatever. It's just like a child who just got excited and just couldn't help himself. And and I've seen that quite a bit now, where there's a loss of concentration, even in the second test, first innings, getting out down the leg side for the upteenth time, or even when in that first test against Rabada, you'll notice the number of times. What is that shot? Please
The
explain this
half
to me, guys.
leave, the half
This
leave,
half
half
leave, this
cut.
half leave, it's
He did it
crazy,
to Bumrah as well. He did it to Bumrah as well in
Yeah,
the
he got
T20
out to
one.
Bumrah, right?
Yeah,
And don't
exactly.
forget, didn't he get out to Mohammad Siraj attempting a similar shot? He was
Yeah.
out bowled to Siraj in the 23 World Cup after scoring a 50.
Yeah.
He tried to dab the ball down. You couldn't. It's not quite a half leave there. It was more of a dab, and he got inside edge and he was out. So look, clearly that shot doesn't really work for him, and I also think it's because he sometimes loses his judgment of where his off stump is, right? And I think that's something that he'll need work on. It was a lot better in the second test, and especially the second innings. And if somebody told you at the start of the day Babar would score 250s, but they'll be in separate innings, you'd be like, that's insane. Like, what are the chances of that happening? And then him not converting either of them. I mean, again, it was a loose shot to get out. He knows it.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
No, I think yeah, but I guess in his defense, at least he got 350s, and given the bar is so low for everyone else,
and also in South Africa, fair enough. Yeah.
In South Africa, and I think even on the last tour, he was kind of one of the few bright sparks in South Africa. So from that point of view, maybe his Cena average is also slightly inflated. So when you have
he's
these
very good in
discussions,
South Africa. That because I remember even in one-day series, he's got a few hundreds there. Like in 2021, he clearly likes that. I will say though that the quality of South African bowling in the second test was just not as strong. They rested a couple of their bowlers, and also that's like between you and me. I mean, we've grown up seeing Sean Pollock, Arnold Donald, and all. So it's not quite the same level. And Nokia's obviously injured / doesn't really play much red ball. So look, all that put together, yes, CA Gold is celebrating. It's a change in batting sponsor and suddenly a change in fortunes. But look, I will give credit where it's due. Babar Azam stepping up to number 3. Kamran Ghulam
and open.
and then opening eventually. Again, really good. But even if that didn't happen, I think, and to be honest, Zahid, I know this whole talk, and we said this in previous episodes about number 4 being for, being where your best player plays, Kohli, everybody, Sachin and all, but not necessarily. Ricky Ponting played number 3. The difference is number 4 should be someone who is equally good against pace and spin. Number 3 is the player who has more than a slight preference towards pace, and that is definitely Babar Azam, right? So I think number 3 is his spot. It also, I do feel Babar gets more under pressure when 2 wickets are down and he comes in. I think when 1 is down, he's a bit better. Or 0 are down, I mean, he's great, right? But but he can't open. I understand that. But that's what
I mean, thinking of it from a merit point of view, I guess Kamran Ghulam technically was the incumbent at number 4. And Babar was a newcomer, so he had to fit in at 3 because Ishan was going out.
Yes.
So from that, and at the end of the day, as different as the conditions were, Ghulam got 100 on debut, right? Batting at 4. And for whatever's been said and done, Ghulam has played 4 test matches. He's got 100 and a 50. So you can question some of the technique and all of that, but still he's not done 100%. Awful.
Yeah.
So Babar was the one who had to find a way back in, despite all the PR and all of that Babar does have. So I don't think that will change. Hopefully in the West Indies series, both of them do well. Hopefully, they should do well against not the most challenging bowling attack and all of that.
Don't say. You have no idea.
In the most
in a way with Mohammad Abbas antics that we start trying to produce seam pitches and get Abbas and all pace attacks in.
But
we know what works in Pakistan. Just do it, please.
I mean, part of the reason you can also argue Pakistan's performance in the Test series at least was there was the lack of context from a Pakistan point of view, right? I mean, they're not going to qualify for the WTC. South Africa obviously had to win 1 to qualify, so especially in the first test, they had a lot going for it. Whereas now the West Indies series, at least there is something on the line where you don't want to finish bottom of the WTC WTC table, right? Because if Pakistan lose, I think they'll probably end up bottom of the table. So
I was hoping that Pakistan could win South Africa 2-0. Australia did what they had to do. Australia then had to just beat Sri Lanka. Oh no! I think that didn't even matter. All Pakistan needed that was just out of their hands, other than Australia winning, was South Africa to be docked an over 8 penalty. As it happens, we got
Pakistan got that,
like 15 or something, right? So didn't quite happen the way I wanted it to. Least of all the 2-0 defeat. But I think we haven't touched on, probably in my view, two bright spots. I want to talk about Shan Masood's batting. Okay, look, everyone says yes, his captaincy should go, and someone else, and Mohammad Rizwan should be made captain. I agree. Shan Masood has not proven himself that great in Test cricket, but the question is alternatives, and I don't see Rizwan as an alternative in Test cricket because I'm not even sure his place is 100% certain in the long term. Because, and I'm glad Rohail Nazir is in the squad against the West Indies. I'm not sure he'll get to play, but
Yeah.
I definitely think Pakistan should start thinking about other potential keepers just to put a bit of pressure on Rizwan that he can't keep making the same mistakes again and again in red ball cricket. And if a newcomer comes in and he ends up having really good technique, solid keeping, and solid batting, then it's perhaps a way forward for us, right? So that's why it's not certain. But coming back to Shan Masood, his batting, yes, he gave his wickets away. That 145 was a phenomenal innings. Questionable LBW dismissal. I know there was a lot about the camera angle at the start of, like the camera angle behind the bowler's arm that we were
Yeah.
watching was a bit angled, and for DRS you saw a straighter angle. But I also see Shan Masood's side of the coin, which is he's telling you that the ball hit him in a certain part of his
Yeah.
thigh, I think, or just above the knee roll, whatever, and he felt it. And what was shown on DRS was not in that area, right? And he can, so there, we know
Yeah.
technology isn't perfect, but whatever. 145, excellent innings. I actually thought he was more not way, but more comfortable than Babar Azam. It felt like he had a lot of time on his hands, and there was no way he was going to get out. Babar, there were a few, you know, close calls, especially early on in his innings. Because again, I feel Babar plays with a lot of pressure and weight of expectation. But Shan Masood felt quite relaxed from the beginning, and I've seen this across all his innings. There were moments, he has a lot of time on his hands. He just gives his wicket away, but he's actually a sound technical batsman with a lot of, good stroke play. So that was a clear bright spot, which shows that he has the ability. South Africa, not easy as an opener. So tick mark there. Sam Ayub, he got peaches. He's the only player who I thought got phenomenal deliveries to get, and he just got out to them, right? So he didn't make any mistakes. So Shakil. So Shakil goes from being exceptionally frustrating because we know how good he is and his quality to brilliant. His 86 was, in my view, the best innings that we played, better than the 145, in my view, because the conditions were tough. People were, other batters were just throwing their wickets left, right,
Yeah.
and center, and he had to hold everything together. And he, again, an example of a player who has so much time on his hands. Excellent stroke play again. You didn't think he was going to get out until he just blinked at the wrong time. I don't know what happened, or he wasn't expecting a full toss.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, I think even the commentators were like, wow, he looks a serious player, which is a shame because he's actually not. They were talking about him as if he was a newcomer and a real youngster, when he's not. He's been around for, not, not that short a time. So I just hope he starts getting the recognition he deserves, because I actually think he's a phenomenal player, and he's an all-round player against pace and spin.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know what's happened to his bowling, because I remember he did used to bowl a bit.
He
Not
did.
a
I don't know what's
frontline
happened.
bowler, but
He did. He did.
but and yeah, I mean his
Left arm.
statistically, obviously his stats are inflated by the start he had with like 7, 8 consecutive 50s. So he's got like a really crazy average of 57, 58, something like
Yeah,
that.
which doesn't really count.
Yeah, but still, he does. But I do get the frustration point of it as well. As we saw okay, white ball is a different format, but we saw it in the ODI World Cup where he just didn't seem to belong. And at times, he gets starts and gets out, like he did in Cape Town in the second innings.
And even Australia.
So
Even
yeah, in
Australia.
Australia,
But then, he
yeah,
just, when Hazelwood came on to bowl, he just hang his bat out there, just looking to get out. We questioned whether he had that fire in his belly to
yeah,
succeed.
exactly. So there is that. So yeah, maybe a bit more consistency when the going gets tough. Um, but you mentioned a couple of the bright points, and maybe this is a good segue into the broader tour, not just the Test series, the ODIs. I mean, the T20s maybe not less so,
Maybe less so,
but
yes.
yes, the question will be around South Africa's the quality of the pace attack because they're a relatively younger or newer pace attack for the ODIs. But still, you have to in terms of South Africa's batting, it was pretty much their strongest team. Saimi getting two centuries.
Kamran
You
Ghulam.
know, Kamran Ghulam, doing well. Shaheen Afridi at times.
No, and I felt he
uh,
really came good. You can see
yeah,
his pace is up. So finally, now he's accepted that the speed clock wasn't faulty. Remember, he kept saying, "Oh, I don't feel I'm slow."
yeah,
Now he's saying, "Oh yeah, my pace is back." He actually did an interview recently. Pace
yeah,
is back to close to 140. It's still not the
yeah,
143, 144 that 2021 peak days saw him at, but I thought he was very good, right? Sometimes a bit brainless, but I always felt he came back well. And look, I think
yeah,
I'd say he was a tick, right?
yeah.
The
I mean,
bowling,
three nil in South Africa is a huge thing, right, in the ODI. So
well,
as
absolutely,
much as that might inflate Champions Trophy expectations,
well, it
but
clearly has, right? It clearly has, but as always is the case. But look, I think the bowling overall was solid, right? You had Naseem Shah again in places, Haris Rauf also in places, was really good. Salman Aga
Salman,
really proving himself, right? Really proving himself as a genuine all rounder. Goodbye, Shadab Khan. Goodbye, goodbye. I know some people, Saklan, his father in law, saying he should be considered. Absolutely not. I think, and Salman Aga actually with both bat and ball, right? He finished the game
yeah,
in that first innings like a pro, right? And he also scored good cameos. Was it the second? So was it the second game?
yeah.
First game was when he was exceptional. He won us the
Him and
game.
Naseem Shah, yeah,
And second one, that's number one. And Asim Shah was like, "Run loge."
yeah,
But the second one was a bit yeah, the second he had a good cameo. So yeah, so I think he was like he's been a real bright spark. But for God's sake, can Shine Afidi please demote himself down the order in favor
yeah,
of Shah, for God's sake.
yeah. I think that's one thing that's been proven now that Shaheen Afridi cannot bat. I mean, especially against Shamsi. I mean, he is absolutely clueless against any left arm leg spinner. Or I remember even against Kuldeep Yadav, he was pretty clueless in the World Cup. So yeah, I think it's not as if he can even like survive against it. He's just absolutely clueless. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
The
about for
only
him.
question mark is number seven. Irfan Khan Niazi didn't do justice to his,
Yeah,
to the chances he had, and then you had Tayyip Tahir, who
yeah,
who did a bit better. Just remind me, Zaid was I'm just the second and third matches. I think I'm confusing them. The second match was Kamran Ghulam, not so
yeah,
much Salman Aga. Was there Salman Aga there?
yeah. I think that's the one where he came at the end, right? Pakistan scored 300 something, 320, yeah, and then that's
Yeah,
the one.
I think it was the third game where Salman Aga made a good like
Yeah, the second one was Ghulam scored a 50 like of 30 balls or something, right?
yeah, that's what
Yeah, no,
happened.
Salman got 30. No, Salman got a 30 as well in that match as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
But
yeah, he
Irfan
did.
Khan Niazi didn't quite succeed, right? That was
Mm,
the quest, a
yeah,
bit unfortunate. But in that last game, even though Tayyip Tahir got a 20, I think he only had one boundary or two
yeah,
boundaries max. It was really Salman Aga that was really strong. So we still have the number seven question mark, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
we need
absolutely.
to figure out.
Yeah,
But look,
and
otherwise, I think it's been a good.
Abdullah Shafiq 3 ducks.
Yeah, well, there goes that. I mean, how much? Like, hopefully, Fakhar Zaman comes in, and then we have a solid opening partnership. Sam Ayub has been absolutely terrific, right? Let's
Yeah,
just not, let's give credit where it's due. Um, like the way in which he plays, and I think finally now people are seeing this is what happens when you give somebody a run, right? Everybody kept saying, "Oh, the Sami Ayub experiment is failing. Get Babar and Rizwan back at the top in T20 cricket." But this is why when you're so resistant to change and this big player culture, you don't let newcomers grow. And for once,
mm,
we criticize the thinking. Although I don't think we did it here at Gully to Gully, but I think others did, and it's clearly proven to be the right call, right? Sam Ayub clearly has serious talent. It's everybody's been saying it. Ricky Ponting said it. Adam Gilchrist said it. Like, finally, it's being acknowledged. I just wish he could have batted on a flat Cape Town wicket, and he could have
Yeah.
scored some big runs. But c'est la vie. I hope he's fit. Murtaza Ali Shah, the Geo guy, is almost stalking him in London.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean it's going to be him or we're going to be back to Imamul Haq, right? So
yeah, well, I guess.
um,
But yeah, there you go. The only question mark is bowling from a Sufyan, like in terms of Sufyan, right? I think Sufyan has potential because he's left arm Chinaman, so that is unique. My only point is consistency, right? And that's something he'll have to work on and get better at. He had bowled some good balls in patches. He got a bit lucky with a few dismissals. I still don't think he's high quality.
yeah, especially when someone like a Klassen starts going after him.
Or all of India, all
Yeah.
of India, they'll just be like, all right, let's get on with this, right? So he'll have to really get better. But the only way he is going to get better is if he continues to play. Issue
Yeah.
is he isn't the first choice. Abrar Ahmed did well in this series, right? My only question with Abrar Ahmed is he seems to do well like in certain games, but in other games he looks very flat. Like I thought he was a bit
Yeah.
flat in the test series that he's played in the past. And he has also been flat. I think he played some games in Australia, uh,
Yeah.
or was it, and also Zimbabwe, where Ash Sufyan outplayed him. So it's a 50-50 call, but I think Abrar Ahmed does get a nod because what he did show himself to do here is more control and
Yeah.
more smartness, right? Yes, some batting wasn't top quality, but he did it against some good quality opposition in conditions that aren't known to favor him.
Yeah. Yeah. And from a Champions Trophy perspective, hopefully the conditions might be more favorable to spin. So probably he gets it.
Maybe
Well,
our batters would not want that too much. Like I don't know what. Like we figured it out in Test cricket, right? But in ODI cricket, unless you get Numan and Sajid and like get clone them into like two other Sajid and Numans, and still, by the way, we won't win because India will absolutely trounce everybody with spinning conditions. But I just remember they're not playing in Pakistan, so ignore what I just said, and we won't open that door. But yeah, so I think I'm not sure. I think we're gonna have our classic flat wickets that don't do much. Um, I mean,
with that, but against New Zealand, maybe you can get away with it. But I think it was it Pakistan, New Zealand, Bangladesh. Yeah, I'm not sure. But but yeah, I think that is that for South Africa.
that's it for South Africa. Look, I think if I had to summarize, I'd say the first test. Look, overall, I thought we did well in the sense that we showed a bit of fight, but I think we've reached a point where that's not enough. We need to close our games. We need to win games, and I don't like it when people keep saying, "Oh yeah, we learn. This is the time of learning. We learn how to finish eventually," as if you're talking like a minnow team that has just got admitted into Test cricket. You are one of the premier teams, or were one of the premier teams in Test cricket. You're not. You're probably second tier now, with the current crop, but you used to be top tier. So I hate it when you're like, oh yeah, we just don't know how to close our games. Well, no, you did know, you forgot. Okay, so yeah, and look, and don't get me started on the coaches. We've got Akib Javed, a bowler, and Azhar Mahmood, a bowling all rounder, sitting there. And what's your weak suit batting? I'll let you figure that one out. But in any case, thank you, Zahid. Obviously, we've got more cricket coming up. Pakistan against the West Indies. Squad got announced. No surprises there. And the only point I will say is I don't think that will give us much clues into the Champions Trophy, given how we
Yeah,
have a certain template in Test cricket. The bigger clues will be in the Tri Series. So let's see what happens. Other than that, obviously, Australia go to Sri Lanka with Steve Smith leading. So there are a few games up and running, but the World Test Championship will be South Africa against Australia. You have to say Australia started overwhelming favorites, but I'm all green here, but not the traditional green, but that I usually wear. But it's South Africa because I think they deserve
Yeah.
some sort of trophy, having come so close on so many occasions. Let alone this past year.
Yeah. No, I agree.
They
You
had it
know,
easy, though. I will say they had it easy. They
you
had it
have to
easy
beat
because
what is in front of you, right?
I agree. I agree. I
Like
totally agree.
Pakistan had it on paper. Pakistan had it very easy in the previous cycle, right? Where they
Yeah,
had
and they
England,
actually have it
Australia at
very easy
home.
in the upcoming cycle too. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But
Poor India. Have you seen India's cycle? Oh my god.
yeah, but I
See
mean that's part of it is also commercially driven, right? Because they need to play these tough
that.
series away to
Yeah,
England and stuff. So that's it is what it is.
true.
But
All
anyways,
right.
on that note,
Thank you,
thanks for
Zahid.
watching. Thank you.